Agencies have learnt how to be more transparent about their commercial model. I think the media agencies are much better at it than the advertising agencies. I think what's happened with the media agencies is they got squeezed quicker in the crunch. And so they had to be leaner and they had to be cleaner in the way that they talked about their commercial model with clients to stay afloat effectively. Ad agencies, there's still a few dark arts in advertising. You know, the TV production model, that's still shrouded in some element of mystery. Yes, cost controllers have come into the industry and helped clients understand, but in reality, I'm not sure why they're necessary. If everybody could just have a much more simplified, streamlined model, agencies should make money from clients. And it's a question of agreeing with the client how much money can be made, how much can the client and the agency agree that profit margin should be. So a marketeer like myself, a brand and comms guy, understands the value an agency brings to a business, but I'm not sure my financial controller or my chief executive does in the same way, because their heads are buried in risk models, pricing models, and structures which are not to do with marketing. It's probably to do with where marketing sits in the hierarchy of an organisation. So in a bank, for example, marketing is not the top of the list in terms of hierarchy. It's things like pricing and risk are, and finance. And so therefore, people mistrust people go, well, why are you away making an ad in South Africa? Well, I have to explain to them that the days are 6 hours longer, the costs are 20% cheaper, et cetera, et cetera. The unionisation is much less, so it's much more commercially viable. But everything has to be boiled down and explained in those terms. And so when they look at agencies, they just see the old-fashioned way of looking, lunches, dinners, wining and dining. And that stuff doesn't really happen anymore. That kind of thing went out in the 90s at the latest. The hardest parts of my particular job, and I think this is probably a similar thing in a lot of different businesses for brand marketeers, is proving the value of our marketing spend. What pound is returned for the pound invested? And we're regarded quite often as a cost centre in our business, and argue the case quite rightly, and I argue it very strongly that we're an investment centre. We're part of an engine for growth, not a cost reduction exercise. There are so many things that agencies do really well, I'll never be able to bring them in-house. And I think that's because fundamentally what you pay for when you pay for an agency is not a name or a process, you're paying for talent, more than anything. And agencies should have better people at doing that than I should be able to employ. There are some very interesting things happening online with research, and they're using techniques which are about speed and brevity. So I think it's about getting a questionnaire or a question to market and it only being 1 or 2 questions. So it's not a 20 or 40-minute structured questionnaire. It's not an interrelated quota control sample that's taken 6 weeks to design with 5,000 people in it. It's, I need to find out if people like this, I'm going to send it out and ask that question and we'll see what we get back. And other things that I think agencies undervalue as a skill and actually isn't particularly prevalent in agencies at the moment is the art of listening. And so what you find sometimes as a client is that the agency will impose their model upon you, not listen to what you want. And therefore, they bring their skills to bear on their model, not on your problem. And I think the agencies that will succeed going forward are the ones that listen, not listen, I'm telling you to do something, do exactly what you're told. Listen to my problem and apply your intellect and your talent and your creativity and your flair to that problem, not how to impose your model on that problem and execute it effectively. I think the advertising industry is in danger of getting its act together again and recovering from probably the double impact of a massive change in social consumption. The way people bought, planned, used, kind of got involved in media generally, then followed very, very quickly by the credit crunch and the impact that had on budgets and the issues that brought around frankly, agencies staying afloat. And I think what you saw was the media agencies getting their act together a lot quicker. So they were much earlier adopters of digital and much quicker at adapting their commercial model, their economic structure to accommodate different ways of working. What's happening in the kind of more creative side of the industry is that that's happening much more now. Agencies are providing integration where you need it or providing specialisms where you don't. And so we're seeing a recovery of that kind of intellectual ground that agencies have, which is about them providing creativity and flair where clients don't have them. Because sometimes the client integrated digital quicker than the agencies did. And that's the issue, because agencies are usually ahead of the curve and they were sort of slightly behind it. And I think that's getting even paced again now. But with media owners like Google, you know, Apple, etc., creating content as well as being media owners, they're kind of taking the curve away from agencies all the time. It's quite a difficult world to be in. Social media works in creating your content advertising-wise to promote it. I think it works very well in, I've got this new thing, I didn't know I wanted it, so let's take the iPhone as the latest, most relevant example. I didn't know I wanted it, but now I've got it, I just can't stop talking about it. But if you'd given that to a consumer to create some content about, as an advert to promote it, they wouldn't have known what it was because they didn't want it. So you're in this kind of, you know, how do you break into that circle? And I think that's where agencies with their, usually with their intellect and their creativity, grasp the kind of opportunity of these propositions and these products sooner and can create, you know, desire for purchase. An important part of our communication strategy and plan each year is building in an element of the budget that allows us to test something new. So usually I will spend between 5 and 10% of my annual marketing budget trying something, if it's not new, something different. It's incumbent upon marketeers in their businesses to probably be the people who push that. Because certainly in the nature of banking, I'm paid to be the person who pushes the envelope a bit. Because I've got people, not me personally, but the business has people who work in risk and pricing, and their job is to close everything down to the lowest common level of risk. My job is to try and push it out a little bit more, to try and help us expand.